And hello, Savannah. Thanks for tuning into WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And thanks for tuning into Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. Happy Wednesday, everybody. If you're listening right now, you have just reached the hump of hump day. So everything else is going to be easy breezy for the rest of this week. Friday is near. And on today's show, we're going to be talking a little bit more about questions, and I'm going to give some answers from some of my subscribers and actually a couple of people that I've worked with and invested with in the last couple of days. And but before I get started, I just wanted to let you all know it is a beautiful day out there. So if you are visiting Savannah, if you are a tourist or a guest or just visiting this beautiful city of Savannah, it's gorgeous out there. So make the best of it, have some fun. And I will be back in just a moment after Memories We Share by Cut Copy. And that was Cut Copy with Memories We Share. I always play a couple of my songs from my most recent playlist here to start our show here off. And thanks for tuning into Real Estate Real Talk with myself, Julia M. Spencer. I'm a local real estate investor, advisor, and enthusiast, and I bring my knowledge and everything that I learn about real estate to you out there, dear Savannah listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always. And in today's show, I decided to answer a couple of questions. I get pretty much emails on a daily basis. I also get a lot of comments on my YouTube videos. And sometimes I'm kind of lazy about responding right away, but I do try to get to all of them, and I do see all your questions. So if you ever want to find me or you want to contact me or ask a question, my email is realestate@juliamspencer.com. I'm also a local Airbnb host, so for my guests out there that are listening, hello everybody. And anyways, today's question, the very first one anyways, is by a lady, Mary Pearson. I've actually made a video with her, so you can actually go on YouTube and also see what she looks like. But she's also a colleague, I guess I should say, and she was first a student. Now she's kind of a colleague. We've invested together in South Carolina. We went also to an auction right here in Chatham County. And she called me just yesterday, actually, and asked me this question. And I thought, I'll bring this question to the show. It might be useful for other people to hear the answer to this as well. But let me give you first a little bit of a backstory. So Mary and I met, I think it was October of last year, so almost a year ago. And she had come to me with the wish to learn how to invest in tax sale foreclosures. And gladly, happily, I have a lot of people that come to me like that, and I love to teach anybody. And we got together, we sat here at the Starbucks over there on Victory Drive for a couple of hours, and basically fletched out like a game plan of some of the properties and the auction for the next month. And while we were doing that, we also kind of drove around and looked at the properties as well. And at that particular auction, I believe it was in November, where she went with her boyfriend and myself, and we all bid on something. And I believe we all actually won something. I can't remember exactly. But for sure, she purchased a property that month or the next month for approximately, I want to say it was like $5,000. And don't quote me on that. That show is actually right there on the WRUU website as well. You can listen to it from back then. She was on my show actually a few times. And so basically what happened is she purchased this property. The original owner didn't pay their taxes. They went to auction. She purchased it and she won the bid. And then what happened is the owner immediately contacted her and basically wanted to get information of how to get it back, how much is owed, what the process is. And we were kind of doing a three-way thing because Mary was very new at the time. And she was asking me questions of what should I tell this person now? How does it go? How do we do redemption? If they want to pay off, what's the amount they owe me? And I went through all of this with her. And apparently she's been in contact with the owner now for a couple of months, for quite some time. And the redemption period, of course, is coming up here very soon, a couple more months, November. It's August right now, so about 3 months or so. And it's becoming very evident that the original owner does not have the funds to pay her back. Now, he would actually have to pay her back what she paid plus the 20% penalty, plus any additional taxes that she's paid on top of her bid amount since the time that she purchased the property. So the amount is quite a bit more than $5,000 now. And you can kind of do the math in your head if you wanted to, but it's probably more like in the 8,000 or so, depending on how much city taxes were owed. And the original owner just doesn't have that kind of cash. So he contacted her and asked if he could just make payments. And subsequently, of course, she called me and asked me, hey, should I accept that? Because now we're getting into this weird thing where I'm accepting payments from the original owner for a property that I have a lien on, that I have a sheriff's deed on here in Georgia, but it's not really a property I have possession of because the original owner still lives there during the redemption period. What should I do? Should I be okay with that? Should I say no or what? So here's my answer to that particular dilemma here. And this is also something I want to advise you to not do. So do not accept any payments unless the original owner is planning to pay the property completely off, or what he or she owes, by the time the redemption period is up. And here in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, it's 1 year plus 1 day. So if she purchased the property in the first week of November of last year, it would be that same date that she purchased it, November of this year, plus 1 day. And if the original owner cannot pay her the amount by then I wouldn't accept any payments. Now, I would actually personally not accept any payments in any case. I would just recommend the original owner, hey, if you want to make payments, just set the money aside on your own side, and then when you have everything together, just pay me it all at once. Even if it's on the very last day, I don't care, as long as you can pay me back on that very last day. And by the way, dear listeners, there's been a lot of times when people have come to me on the very last day and have paid off their properties. So it definitely happens quite a bit where people just stretch out their redemption period till the very end. And it's completely legal and fair, and I have no problem accepting their payment on the very last day. But in this case, I advised Mary to not accept the payments, and because it was kind of evident already from her discussions with him that he wasn't going to have the full payment all together and paid off by the time the redemption period is up in 3 months. And the reason I say that is because once she starts accepting payments, it puts her in kind of a weird position with the law, because she's kind of giving the original owner an extension of the redemption period in a way, and puts her in kind of like a weird situation with the law. So it would be difficult for an attorney to bar redemption rights if already part of the payment is made. And a judge could decide either way whether or not the property is barred at this point, can be barred even. What the situation basically would be that the attorney would basically file for barment of redemption rights after the redemption period is up. But if already part of the payment was made, that would just be subtracted from the final redemption amount. Because during the barring of redemption rights, which is another process that takes about 6 weeks or so, the original owner can still come back and get the property back. Only now the penalty increases to 30%. So you just subtract the amount that they've already paid from that amount, and it doesn't shorten any of the redemption. It doesn't lengthen, the redemption period at all for the original owner. It just reduces the amount that they have to pay. But then again, it equals it out because they have to pay more of a penalty. So it doesn't really make much sense to give or accept payments from the original owner. And in that case, I would just flat out say, no, I can't do that. Of course, say that in the nicest way to the original owner, especially if they're still in the home, they're still living there, and that is their residence. You have to be also very careful, very polite, very understanding and compassionate to their situation, of course, because, after the redemption period is up, and if they're still there, in order to get possession of the property, you would also have to file for eviction, which is very stressful and very sad process for anybody that's losing their home. So that was my answer to Mary's question there. And that's actually probably a very good question for a lot of listeners out there, and also people that subscribe to my YouTube channel and subscribe to my email list as well. A lot of the people that check my channel out are basically looking for advice on tax sale foreclosure investing, and that is what we do right here. So let me just look and see what other questions I got this week. This was my first one. I have a couple more lined up for you, and I will be back in just a moment after this song right here. And that was Not the Same by Distractor. And this is Julia M. Spencer, Real Estate Real Talk here. We're going to talk about real estate investing, and anything and everything related to real estate. And today I'm answering some questions from my subscribers and a couple of people that are on my Facebook and some of the emails that I've received. And this next one is going to be from Matt Swanson. Actually, I've talked to him I think 2 days ago on Monday, and he had a really good question about depreciation. For some reason, in the last couple days, I've gotten several depreciation-related questions, and I always am worried about people listening to my show here or to my videos and getting completely confused, and I right from the front apologize. Everything I say makes complete sense to me, but if I'm not explaining it the right way, feel free to always send me a message, realestate@juliamspencer.com, and ask me, and I'll try to explain it really the most simple terms that I can so that anybody and everybody can understand the answer. So let me just get to this question. So Matt here actually purchased a tax sale, I believe it was tax sale foreclosure. I can't remember. I don't have the email in front of me, but he purchased it for $50,000, and I believe it was a former nursing home, and it's not here in Georgia. It's a different state, but the rules are applicable anywhere in terms of depreciation because those are federal IRS rules. So he purchased the property for $50,000, and the actual value of the property, fair market value, is anywhere between $1 to $1.5 million. It's the assisted nursing home, I believe, is what it used to be. And it has been vacant for quite some time, but I believe he finally had it pushed through to get remodeled and finished and is ready to put it back into service. He has a tenant that wants to start a new business in there and also have a nursing home, basically assisted living facility in there. And the fair market value, according to him, is anywhere between $1 and $1.5 million. Now, he purchased the property for $50,000, and his question to me was, okay, so what do I use as my depreciation basis? Now, remember, dear investors, if you're listening, depreciation is basically the amount that you can deduct off your taxes for each year that you hold a property in terms of depreciation. That's how much a dollar amount, the property depreciates every year. And that would be the actual building only, not the land. So we're going to get to the answer to that question here really quick, but I actually just noticed that we are at the bottom of the hour here. And what we do here at WRUU at the bottom of the hour, we have some announcements that we have to play, and I will be right back after those.
The Georgia Salzburger Society presents Salzburger Fest, celebrating the 284th anniversary of the landing of the Salzburgers in Georgia. The event will feature German food, music, arts, and craft demonstrations, and tours of one of Georgia's oldest buildings, Jerusalem Church. For more information, find the 2018 Georgia Salzburger Heritage Day event page on Facebook.
WRUU 107.5 FM is all volunteer community radio. Tune in this afternoon. From 3 to 4, Rob Hessler and David Laughlin present Art on the Air, an interview program dedicated to the visual arts in Savannah. From 4 to 6, Louis Clausey and Matthew Adams present That Old Savannah Magic, a variety show featuring Savannah history, radio theater, interviews, and music. From 6 to 7, Barbara Humphreys and Albert Strickland present Voices of Resistance, giving voice to justice and peace activists with no other voice in the Savannah media. Find our full schedule at wruu.org.
I'm Rob Hessler.
And I'm David Laughlin.
Now through September 14th, Location Gallery hosts 300 and Under, an art show to benefit WRUU Savannah Soundings 107.5 FM.
300 and under. Is that shekels or drachma? Are we talking yen, big stones? What are we doing here?
This exhibition features affordable artwork by over 40 artists, many of whom have appeared on our show, Art on the Air, which you can listen to right here every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m.
We have the noise, and Location Gallery at 417 Whitaker Street has sights to behold. What's more, visitors can purchase unique Savannah art from there, which benefits this radio station and our creative community. Stop by and check out this opportunity while it lasts and see a unique varietal display of what Savannah has to offer. With this fundraiser, you can bring art home and listen to WRUU FM 107.5 on the way. It's all good.
Location Gallery is open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. More information can be found by searching 300 and Under on Facebook.
And thanks for staying here with me for Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer on WRUU. And we're answering the question of what should be the depreciation basis of a property. A subscriber investor has come to me and has said that he purchased the property for $50,000. I believe at some auction, or he got a really, really good deal. And the property's fair market value is now $1 to $1.5 million. And he wants to know which amount he can use as his depreciation basis on his tax return. Now, what does that mean? That basically just means that you take that amount divided by 27 and a half years, and that's the amount of deduction that you can pretty much place as a negative number on your tax return to reduce your taxable income, which basically just means that you owe less money to the IRS. So now in this case, we of course want to have the bigger amount because that gives us a bigger depreciation expense. And depreciation expenses, of course, are the expense that most of us investors aim and strive to have lots of because it's a very easy deduction. It's only once a year thing. It's easy to track it. And it's typically also one of the largest expenses on a piece of real estate. So we want to see if Matt can actually get that deduction, all of it, and not just a smaller deduction off the purchase price. But in this case, I actually had to disappoint him a little bit because the way the IRS reads is that the depreciation basis of a piece of real estate, and this also goes only for investment property, not your residential personal property, is the actual purchase price or the fair market value, whichever is lower. And in this case, his purchase price is way, way lower than the actual fair market value. Now, that's probably not the answer he wanted to hear. I had to apologize, but those are the IRS rules. So basically what he would have to do is take the $50,000 divided by 27 and a half, and then he would be able to deduct that amount off his taxes every year, and that would be his depreciation expense. Now, please, dear listeners, don't take my word as gospel. Always check the information with a CPA or an attorney or financial advisor. For some commercial properties, in this case that might actually apply, is that the depreciation length is 40 years. It might just be residential property that's 27 and a half years. Again, a CPA would know this information much better than I do, and these things are also very easily found on the internet and even on the IRS.gov website, so you can definitely check those out for yourself and get the right information. Now, there's a couple of tricks and tips that real estate investors use, though, to up that depreciation amount. Some of them are discussed in various websites, and sometimes I help people find kind of ways around that. So if you have more questions about that, of course, for information, you can always email me, realestate@juliamspencer.com, and I'll try to help you out a little bit on that. So that was kind of like a short answer to a really long question. Matt and I will be talking a little bit further here in the next couple weeks, the next couple days, hopefully. And we're going to try to get him as much depreciation expenses as we can for this property. And again, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer on WRUULP. We are a local Savannah radio station here, ran all by volunteers, and we just love what we do. I love hosting radio. I love playing music, and I'm going to play you this song just for that purpose, and I'll be right back. That's Everybody Wants to Rule the World, a Tears for Fears song by Brother Tiger. It's a new version I discovered just yesterday, so I thought I'd play that for you. And thanks for having tuned into Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer here on WRUU. Happy Wednesday, everybody out there. It's a gorgeous day out, so make the best of it. And we are talking about real estate investing. Actually, we're talking about numbers. Trying not to put you to sleep here on the Wednesday, but I actually want to talk a little bit more about depreciation. I actually had another question from a YouTube subscriber, and she watched one of my videos on depreciation, and I had mentioned that 27.5 time frame that a residential investment property can be depreciated over. And for commercial property, as I just mentioned, I think it's 40 years. Again, check with a CPA to get the exact numbers. And her question basically was, what is going to be happening after the 27.5 years? Do you have to give the money back, the depreciation after that time frame if you sell the building? So that's a really good question, actually. And I know you CPAs out there, financial gurus and stuff, probably are rolling your eyes. But you know what? This is a really good question, because if this person has this question, it means it's probably circling in other people's minds that maybe aren't as financially savvy. And it's a good one, and I'm going to answer it. So what is going to happen after the 27.5 years? So you kind of have to imagine when you purchase a piece of property, whether it is residential real estate or if it's commercial real estate, kind of like put that property on a imaginary timeline, like a line, on a piece of paper, like graphing paper. Just think back to your school days and put that property on a imaginary line on the bottom. And to the right is the future, and to the left is basically the past. So you basically put a point there on that line, and that is the time when you actually purchase the property for whatever price that you paid for. So what happens is that to the right of the line, you basically have, let's say, 27.5 or 40 years for commercial property, and you just basically divide little time slots to the right for that many years. So to the left, of course, or I'm sorry, you do that to the left. And so to the left is of course then the past, and to the right is going to be your value of the property as it increases over time, and to the left is going to be the 27.5 years. So I'm sorry, I confused you right there, in my own head even. So as time passes, hopefully your property will increase in value. So the amount on the right is going to go to the right, because it's going to go further up and up every time more time passes, or a year or 2 or 3. And to the left, the time passes of the amount of depreciation years that you have. So you're basically creating sort of a gap between the actual depreciable value of the property to the left and what the fair market value of the property is going to be in the future, which is going to go up, and the value of the property is going to go down at the same time. So you're creating sort of a delta. So the delta every year is going to increase, hopefully. Hopefully your property is not going to depreciate in value, so the fair market value is going to go up and not going to go down, because, of course, when you buy investment property, you're hoping that it's going to be worth more in the future than it is now. And you're creating this gap, basically. So the longer you depreciate a piece of property, the more depreciation expenses you have taken over the years on the tax return. And hopefully on the right side, the value of the property goes up, which will correspond with the price that you're going to get for that property once you sell it. So at the point that you sell the property, you're going to have to basically pay capital gains taxes on that difference. So let's say, I'm just give you an example. I think it's easier if I describe it with an example. Let's say you purchased the property for $100,000, and let's just assume that the property, all of it, is worth $150,000, but $50,000 of that is the land value. Land cannot be depreciated, so we're just going to subtract that right from the get-go. The value of the building is $100,000. That's what we're going to depreciate. So let's say the value of the property is $100,000, and you go and hold that property until you've depreciated over the years half of that, $50,000. So now the property is $50,000 is left on it that you can depreciate in the future if you keep holding on to it. And you decide to sell that property, and instead of getting $100,000 what you paid for it, you're going to get $150,000. So now you created this gap between $50,000 and $150,000. It's $100,000. So you're going to have to pay capital gains taxes on $100,000 because that is your capital gains. So if that kind of makes sense to you, at one point in the middle, you purchased the property for $100,000, depreciable value is $50,000 after so many years. You sell it for $150,000. The gap is $100,000. You pay taxes on that gap. So how much are the taxes actually going to be on capital gains? That just all depends how else your tax return looks like. If you have a lot of properties, a lot of expenses, maybe you have vacation rentals or you run some other business, or maybe you're just a small-time real estate investor and you actually have a job where you have to pay taxes, that kind of all falls into play, and how much money you actually do make and what tax category you're in. I kind of like, for default, always assume that for calculation purposes, I assume people have the highest tax bracket, which would basically mean that you have to pay 33% of your income. So on a $100,000 capital gain, you would have to pay 33%, which is $33,000. So that's kind of how you have to calculate that. And of course, the numbers are very much arbitrary. It's just an example. But I hope this made sense. You don't have to give the money back, but you will be responsible for the delta between whatever is left to depreciate on your building and what you sell it for at the point that you sell it. So you don't have to give the whole depreciation amount back. You just have to pay back taxes to the IRS on the capital gains that you get when you sell the property. So I hope that answered the question adequately. We have about another 13 minutes or so left here with Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. I do always encourage you to send me emails, and you can reach me at realestate@juliamspencer.com. I am really, really happy to get your messages. I also love being here on the radio and talking, so the more questions you send me, the more I have to talk about. And I will go ahead and play you one more song here, and I'll be right back with maybe another one or two questions. That was White Lies with Morning in LA. My name is Julia M. Spencer. You're listening to Real Estate Real Talk right here on WRUU. Thanks for tuning in. And we have time for one more question here that I see, about 10 minutes till 1 o'clock. And this one is going to circle around whether or not an investor should have to pay taxes during the redemption period. And this is a very specific question I actually got from a subscriber in Atlanta. I think he purchased one of my ebooks and then went out to an auction and actually bought some investment properties up there. I believe it was Fulton County or one of the counties up there, Cobb, I'm not sure, up in Atlanta somewhere. And this was probably, I want to say, a couple months ago. And the way it works here in Georgia is that in most counties bill taxes twice a year. In some unfortunate areas, unfortunate, here in Savannah, we actually get billed 4 times, 2 times by the county and 2 times by the city if your property is located within city limits. And so basically he purchased this property. Up to that point, all the taxes, of course, were paid, because that is what you're purchasing at an auction, is the outstanding taxes. But as you're holding the property during the redemption period, of course, every day you accumulate more tax expenses. And if you hold it for more than 6 months, it's more than likely you're going to get a tax bill. And here in the state of Georgia, even though it's considered sort of like a lien state and not a deed state, and I explain that difference also on my website, so if you ever want to check out and see what that means. But even though you get a sheriff's deed after you purchase a lien at an auction, you really only have a lien. It's a really weird thing Georgia does. But you are the basically the person that's on the property card as the owner. Even though you have no possession to the property, you have no access rights, you can't even step on it or trespass, you are the actual owner. And as such, you will be getting the tax bill. So what do? You're within the redemption period. You have no access to this property. Can't do anything with it. Can't rent it. Can't sell it. Can't do anything. All you have is sheriff's deed, which is really a lien. very confusing, all of this, I know. But you're going to get a tax bill from the county. So what do? Do you have to pay it? What should I do is what the subscriber asked. And I basically told him, well, you are actually responsible for those taxes. Yes, you are. However, I would just recommend to not pay them. The way it works in most counties, and I believe it's the same up there in Atlanta as it is down here, is that you actually get charged a penalty of 1% of any outstanding tax bill, but they're not going to bring an outstanding tax bill to an auction if they've already sold the sheriff's deed to that property once. So they kind of hold it, and they hold it for that entire redemption period. So you might very well have to pay at the end anywhere between 6 and 12, or basically 0 to 6% in addition to whatever the future tax bills are. But it's probably worth it to just hold on to your money and maybe invest it in something else and not spend it on just catching up the taxes. This is what I usually do when I get a tax bill. I kind of just look at it and I kind of file it away, keep it at the back of my head that I probably may have to pay it, but I kind of just wait. So if the original owner then comes back and says, hey, I want to buy back my property that you purchased at auction so-and-so, and then I'll go, okay, well, this is the amount, because at that point, I'm going to go to the county and pay up any taxes that are owed city or county, and I'm going to add all of that together and give that original owner the full amount plus the 20% penalty, which basically increases how much money I will be making, but it also catches up the original owner on the future taxes for at least another 6 months. And it's kind of good for them because they don't have to worry about any future tax bills. And it also helps me because my name is actually on the property until December 31st of that year, even if I transfer the property back to the original owner. So that was my recommendation to the subscriber, to just kind of hold on to that tax bill and wait until the original owner comes and wants it back. And if he or she does not want to buy it back and the original owner is absent or just doesn't want to purchase the property back, then the investor can just wait till the redemption period is up. And at that point, he or she just pays all the outstanding taxes. But it's not that big of a deal at that point because they actually get to keep the property, which is probably worth many times over what any future taxes, outstanding taxes are at that point. So if you're going to have to pay an extra couple $100, even if it's $2,000 or $3,000, but you get a $50 or $100 or even more thousands dollars worth property in return, I think that's a good trade-off for most everybody. So that was my last question/answer here for today's show. I hope you liked the show, Real Estate Real Talk. I'm on Wednesdays at noon. Actually, my show starts right at 12:06 p.m., right after the happiness message. Don't miss the happiness message. And in fact, check out all of our programming here on WRUU. You can go to our website. It's WRUU.org. You can check past archived shows. You can also see what's going to be on later on. And for the rest of this afternoon, I believe we have some jazz lined up here, Jazz Brunch, hosted by Dave Lake. And I'm going to be checking off here on this Wednesday with a song by Mass of the Fermenting Dregs. Weird name. And the song's name is Hoo Hoo Hoo. And I hope you have an awesome, awesome rest of your Wednesday. If you have any questions, make sure you can contact me at realestate@juliamspencer.com. You can also reach me through the WRUU.org website. And I look forward to get your feedback and hear from you. Have a great Wednesday, everybody.
For your free guide to real estate investing, visit juliamspencer.com.